Back to the Lebombo border post between South Africa and Mozambique. The authorities there continue to record increased movement of people and goods. The port of entry has seen several closures due to ongoing post-election unrest in Mozambique, with freight cargo being the most effective. And Nqobile Madlala is there and brings us the very latest. Nqobile?
Well, Iman, I think the major concern now is that we're seeing the freight industry or the cargoes not coming this side, and that's a concern from some of the people that are here monitoring that movement. We're seeing the people in terms of the walk-in border, that's normal. We're seeing Omalaisha, which would be the vans and the trucks that will be used, the smaller ones that will be used to move from South Africa to Mozambique. But what we are not seeing is now the big trucks, which is what had a prolonged wait previously. And now that's the concern. And I want to bring in now Lwazi to speak to us. Lwazi, we know that this is a concern in terms of the cross-border business. Why are they perhaps avoiding this area, and what is happening now?
We processed the backlog that we had last week, I think, through SARS and the border. So SARS and the BMA managed to assist us to process a lot of the freight that has been. So we've seen a drastic reduction of the amount of trucks that are here. But we're also seeing that it's gone a bit quiet, and we've picked up that some of the trucks are diverting to some of the other borders. For instance, when we're picking up lines, for instance, in Beitbridge, longer lines. So we are encouraging freighters to come through here because the border is operational, it's normal, everything is normal, and therefore they must push their loads through here as normal. So there is nothing really at the moment to be worried about. So that's the encouragement that we're sending out to all the companies that are doing business on this channel, and we think that it's important that they come through and do business as normal, because things for now are really back to normal.
I suppose then the impact that has taken place here in Lebombo, you're seeing then that it is basically going over into the areas like the Botswana border as well as the border between South Africa and Zimbabwe.
Yes, I think so. We haven't really done a detailed analysis, so we've got to put that up front. But we are seeing a peak in terms of the other borders, particularly Beitbridge, because it's numbers that we hadn't seen at the moment for the past few weeks. So we're looking at that. We're sending people up there to do some kind of analysis to give us the most updated information. But we have seen that there has been a steady rise of trucks going through that border. Some of them have got Mozambique number plates. Some of them are your minerals trucks, which used to go through this border. So we actually monitor. It's still early days, and we don't want to raise any alarm, but we're monitoring this to make sure that we work with the freight industry to advise them to go through this space as it has been the case all along.
You're also seeing quite a lot of people coming through here in terms of vans and all those things. There is quite a lot of overloading as well. Are you dealing with those things?
Yeah, so what we normally see here during this time of the year, particularly the past weekend, is huge volumes of passenger movements now back to Mozambique. People going home for holidays and others going home for, people going home for holidays. Others are just your tourists going through to Mozambique for holidays as well. And there's a lot of cargo that goes through, not necessarily in the trucks, but in the smaller buckets, being pulled by the smaller buckets. Some of them are correct, some of them are overloaded, but we have worked with law enforcement officers to make sure that we bring the loads to the normal, acceptable and permissible standards across, so that we can then manage the overload problem that you're talking about. So yes, some of them do come through overloaded, and they are being made to reorganize their loads or perhaps shift the loads to another form of transportation.
I think one of the issues that was highlighted by some of the truckers that were standing in line when there was a line was the crime within these spaces. And it's not just prevalent here in Lebombo alone. We've seen that also in Beitbridge and whatnot. There seems to be quite a lot of people that take chances. How do you ensure then safety for those that are traveling through, especially having to wait?
So you're correct. There has been some reported incidents in the past of crime and truckers being attacked. I think credit goes to net joints and the police in general. There has been a significant amount of deployments across some of these borders with our own law enforcement officers, the BMA, the police and other law enforcement entities. So we have seen a drastic reduction of those incidents. In fact, we have been here now for almost a week. We haven't had any major incidents being reported. So we've been at this border now since last week, Thursday, and I think we haven't had any reports being passed through the various channels around crime that is taking place here or drivers being attacked. So it means some of the interventions that have been put in place are working. There's been patrols by the police at night, our own law enforcement officers as well, and other law enforcement agencies like the border guards, and everyone else is out here to monitor the situation. It would be the case also in other borders. I think we visited Bridge not so long ago. You do find that there are some reported incidents of attacks on truck drivers that are parked at the border, and those are being monitored closely as well, and certain interventions are being made. In Bridge, for instance, we've just, with the assistance of Sanral, we have put up lighting at the border, which was not there before. So there is now 3 kilometers of lighting from the border outwards, and that has actually improved the situation in terms of lighting the border and making sure that truckers are in a position to be in a safe space. The same was done in Beitbridge in the past, so there is some lighting available. So that improves the conditions on the ground so that you can detect criminals from quite a distance in terms of some of the untoward activities that they are planning.
And perhaps just in closing, we know that government is obviously always in conversation, especially when you have issues where you have an unrest and there has to be movement of cargoes. Are you part of those conversations, and what are your concerns at this moment?
So yes, there are conversations within amongst officials, and I'm sure amongst our ministers on the South African side, in terms of assessing the situation on an ongoing basis. We do give reports to our ministers on the ground, from the ground, in terms of what's happening on an ongoing basis, and they use their own mechanisms to process those reports, of course. And of course, there are also ongoing discussions between officials from South Africa and officials from Mozambique there, and there's always ongoing discussions between the two countries. So we look forward to those ongoing engagements and the engagements that will take place further from today onwards until the crisis is completely resolved.
Okay, thank you very much for speaking to us. That is Lwazi Mboyi. He is the CEO of the Cross-Border Road Transport Agency. That is our guest, Iman, and I think the concern there, of course, being the fact that the freight industry needs to then come back to Lebombo and not sort of divert, because that in itself will then create other problems. But we do know, and we're hearing, that there are talks between the two governments, and we are expecting that there will be a meeting that will be taking place between the two countries.
Nqobile Madlala, live for us at the Lebombo border post. Thanks for the update.